What's going on, my eaters? Y'all, I'm so excited to be here with y'all. It's your boy, Chef Drew, aka Chef, aka Big Drew, aka y'all. This week we talking about what is the difference between cooking, being a chef, and cooking professionally versus being a home cook. It's a question Joe proposed to me. I've heard it before. I've heard similar variations before and thought it would be something cool to talk about. And at the end, we'll tie it all up into something that's good and applicable for you and everybody. But yo, before we get into that, please y'all, like, subscribe, do all the things to help us continue to bring you this great content. Let's go. Y'all, so when Joe brought up this conversation with me, or this idea to talk about this subject with y'all, I remember the first thing that I went to in my mind was culinary school. Y'all, I went to culinary school for 1 year. After that, I was like, this is too expensive. So I would just go work and figure this thing out so I could get paid instead of paying for this thing. I can still learn and get paid instead of having to learn and pay for it. So that's what I did. However, culinary school that 1 year definitely marked and shaped my life and my career, and it highlighted some things. So when Joe asked the question to me, the first thing that came to mind was, I remember being at Johnson & Wales in Miami in the early 2000s, and I remember starting the school year in about August. And y'all, when we finished the school year in May or June, let me tell y'all something. This was crazy. For various reasons, a whole bunch of the people that I started the year with were not there at the end of the year. And by this time, y'all, mind you, this was my second attempt at college. I had seen my siblings go to college and go to school my whole life, so I was familiar with what it looked like. Since then, I have gone to college and finished for the third time. And the thing that stood out the most was the amount of people that did not make it through that year at culinary school. I've never seen so many people or heard of so many people just calling it quits so prematurely, so early. Now, there are other extenuating circumstances. My culinary school was in Miami, Florida. Miami Beach, Florida. If you know, you know. If you don't know, just know you got to be very responsible, and you have to take real care in Miami to keep your life what it needs to be. All the distractions in the world are there to send you left if you let them. And a lot of people let them. All the Miami distractions got to a lot of people. But that wasn't everybody. There was a good handful of people that did not finish that year in culinary school for one simple reason. They got to culinary school, they got a small taste of what it would be like to cook professionally versus what they were accustomed to at home up until that point. And they were like, no, I don't like this no more. They were like, no, I don't like this no more. You know, I think back then when I went to culinary school, if it was today's day and age, things would maybe hash out a little bit different because we live in a day and age where we have YouTube and we have social media, and even if you're a home cook or like to be a home cook, there's a lot of home cooks and things like that right now in this day and age who make a lot of money and they don't never step foot in a commercial kitchen or a culinary school. So timing is everything. If it was a different time, I feel like it would be a different conversation, but it wasn't. And when I went, we filtered through a lot of people. And that's the first thing I thought about when Joe brought this up to me. And so I asked Gwen, as y'all know, if you don't know, my wife is also a chef. We met at that culinary school over 20 years ago. That is crazy, but it's true. So I asked her thoughts on this question too. We have some notes here. I'll pull on my notes. But there are a lot of significant differences from the home cook to the professional chef. I lived this quite intimately because in my family, I tell everybody I learned how to cook from my daddy. Culinary school did not teach me how to cook. The industry did not teach me how to cook. Godfrey Chambers taught me how to cook. I've been cooking my whole life. I watched him cook my whole life until I didn't watch him cook anymore. And you know when I stopped watching him cook, y'all? When he tried to transition from a home cook to a commercial cook. My parents, when I dropped out of culinary school, the reason I was able to do that and the reason I did that at the time was because my mom and dad owned a convenience store with a kitchen in it in Miami. And so I decided, well, I'll stop going to school and I'll just go into my parents' kitchen and School of Hard Knocks figure it out. Through that experience at our family store and restaurant, I just watched, and the biggest point of contention for me and my father, to the point where I ended up leaving the family business, was he wanted to cook for the public the way he would cook at home. And y'all, it just does not translate for several reasons. I'm gonna just read off this list. I'll read off my notes from Gwen, and then I'll just touch on them and talk about them as I read them. So, one major difference. I'll say this off the bat. Difference, Joe, you want to know the difference? The first thing that comes to mind is most home cooks I have experienced, when they have to cook for anything more than what they are typically accustomed to cooking for. If they got a family of one, if they got a family of two, if they got a family of six, they are typically accustomed to cooking for and shopping for that. Maybe that plus one or two. And they're good there. For a chef, for me, I tell people all the time, whether I'm cooking for 2 people or I'm cooking for 60 people, y'all, really potato for me. As a professional chef, volume is just what you do, typically. So cooking for volume does not fluster you, does not stress you out, does not wane on what you do in the kitchen. Now, there's different types of volume, I will say, and people have their preferences there. For example, if you're a cook or a chef in a restaurant, a traditional restaurant, you experience on a nightly basis or a daily basis something different than, say, the chef of a popular catering company. Y'all both know what busy is, but your busy is different. It looks differently. I used to, and Gwen currently, we ran food programs in healthcare. If you're a chef in a hospital versus a chef for a catering kitchen versus a chef in a restaurant, you're all chefs. You all got all sorts of volume and busyness, but the busyness looks differently for each individual. Me, y'all, that restaurant stuff is for the birds. I am not interested in being in the restaurant kitchen. Can I do it? I can do it. But I don't want to. Just saying. I'm the latter. I like catering. I like institution cooking. But restaurant, that daggone printer going, the screen going crazy, I can't stand it. Now, Gwen, on the other hand, Gwen loves it. Gwen hears the printers going crazy. She sees the screens flashing. She's all about it. Not me. So the volume is a big difference. Consistency. As a food professional, our whole livelihood is based off of consistency. What you come and experience on Monday needs to be the same thing you come and experience next Monday when you send your mama to come get it, or the Monday after that. Versus when you cook at home, consistency isn't typically cared about as much. You can more so do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, because at home we're more eating for survival. You know what I mean? Even if you're doing it, you know, in today's format, and you're doing it for like social media or something, if you ran out of some oregano or you ran out of some half and half, you can just make a quick adjustment or leave something out, and it's okay. In the food profession, you don't have that luxury. If I run out of oregano in my restaurant, either I just know something's gonna be lacked, or I gotta go get some more oregano. So consistency, as a home cook, now there's always an outlier, don't come for me, but as a home cook, I don't believe that palate and technique necessarily come into play as much. As a chef, I get paid for being able to taste food, put flavors together, create new flavors and combinations. So my palate muscle is worked a lot more than their typical home cook. Also, my job is to master technique as a professional chef. I tell people all the time, cooking does not change, just ingredients do. So as a chef, a professional chef, it's my responsibility to understand and know all the cooking techniques masterfully that are in my wheelhouse. I'm not saying I know all cooking techniques. What I'm saying is the techniques that I use, I need to know those and be willing to keep them up. So here's another thing that really people get frustrated about. When you're a professional chef, oftentimes, especially if you go into the service industry or restaurants, there's really no work-life balance, y'all. It is not glamorous. It is not fun working in restaurants. You know, restaurant careers, food careers are careers where you miss holidays, you miss weekends, you miss nights. And that's just what it is. A lot of times it's early mornings, and it's late nights. I work in food service. There's a lot of time I know I'm sitting on my smoker when my wife and kids are at home in the bed or whatever. Or, you know, Gwen works in hospitals. There's a lot of times Gwen's in her kitchen before day or during inclement weather or during COVID, because sick people don't just get well and they still got to eat. And so when you do this professionally, y'all, you have to be okay to a degree with compromise and sacrifice in your personal life. Work-life balance it takes a lot to get that hammered out in the culinary industry. Whereas home cooks, they have the luxury of doing them. You know what I mean? Let's see what else we have. Sanitization is good. As a professional chef, I mean, we're always worried about health inspections. We're always worried about just cleanliness, surface, how clean surfaces are, hand washing, sanitization. Whereas, I mean, everything, storage, everything has a place, all that. Whereas as a home cook, you might have somebody's cat walking on the counter. You know what I'm saying? Yo, I ain't gonna lie. I'm funny about eating from people because I don't know if your cat been on the counter. I can't do your animals on the same place the food comes from. So I'm not saying people are nasty, y'all. I'm not saying people don't know how to clean up, but I'm just saying as a course of action, when you cook professionally, sanitization is high. I mean, if we don't get health scores, we can't work. So yeah. I think professional chefs, we put a little more emphasis on equipment. You know, I'm going to buy a different knife than somebody who buys a knife sometimes, or somebody who's just eating to survive. where somebody might be perfectly fine with going to Walmart or going to Target, get the box block set, put the knives on the counter, and that's what they got going on. That works for some people if that's where your cooking is. But my cooking as a professional, I have to do volume and I have to do it quickly often or to a schedule. And in order to do that, certain equipment is necessary. I have to have good pots and pans. I have to have knives. I have to have certain equipment in my repertoire. As a barbecue chef, I gotta have smokers. I gotta have grills. And so equipment and things like that just become a lot more important as a professional chef, just because our livelihoods depend on it, one. And two, you need certain equipment in order to cook at volume. Time management and multitasking. As a professional, everything's to the clock, y'all. A lot of times there's lots of literally pots on the stove. And so multitasking as a professional chef, you know, we always got 6 or 7 things going on in our heads. You know, I might be sitting here cutting up potatoes, but I'm also thinking about the rice cooking. I'm also thinking about the deep fryer that has to be cleaned out. I'm also thinking about the truck that is coming. It has to be checked in. I'm also thinking about that employee that I got to go see. Whereas as a home cook, a lot of times you're thinking about the chicken you seasoning and maybe Johnny in the other room, but multitasking and things like that become a lot more necessarily and prevalent. You have to have a thick skin. Yo, let me say it again for the people in the back. You have to have a thick skin as a professional chef. Everyone ain't gonna like my food, y'all. When you're cooking for volume, someone is going to complain. However, as a house cook or a home cook, if the home starts complaining, you're gonna be in your feelings. You're gonna say, go cook yourself. So you gotta have a thick skin as a professional cook, because here's the thing too, we don't always get it, y'all. We miss it sometimes. I definitely make things and cook things sometimes that don't taste good or that don't come out the way I intend for them to. And so even when that happens and people look at me like, yo, what were you doing, bro? Or anything like that, I just have to have a thicker skin. A lot of times home cooks, y'all can be a little bit more sensitive. I remember when I first got in the industry, I was a sensitive guy a little bit. You had to like everything I put in front of you, Joe. You eat my food, you better like it. You tell me something bad about it, I'll be mad and in my feelings, but not no more. Let's see what Gwen said. Professional chefs oftentimes place, I feel like, again, this is all my opinion, y'all. I've seen a lot of home cooks. I come from home cooks. Professionals typically place a lot more weight on cohesiveness of a dish, making sure the dishes are balanced, and the actual integrity of the product. I know if I'm making somebody food and it's supposed to be hot, I care highly that they get the food hot. If it's supposed to be cold, I care highly that it gets to them cold. If there are certain textures and things that are needed and sensitivities that need to be adhered to, I hold all of that at a very high standard. Whereas as a home cook, we care, but again, we're not cooking for commerce at home. We cooking for survival. So it'd be like, yo, if that Brussels sprout's a little overcooked, deal with it, Johnny. You know what I'm saying? In the restaurant, you can't really say that because you'll lose business. You know, a lot of home cooks are hobbyists. And the only thing attached to their cooking is enjoyment or peace or relaxation. For a culinarian, a professional chef or cook, cooking is fun for me. Cooking is fun for Gwen. I love it. It's my zone. However, it's not a hobby. I take it very, very serious. As professional chefs, we take it very serious. A lot of us, this is how we feed ourselves. This is how we feed our families. But also, because the sacrifice can be so great, it's also a calling, man. This thing, being a chef, it's not what TV makes it out to be. It's not what the internet makes it out to be all the time. It's all fun and fabulous. And a lot of times it's a calling, y'all, and it takes conviction because the demands of the industry on your life, on your body, are just too great. That's another thing. Being a chef is physically intense. And a lot of people go into a commercial kitchen and they work, they feel that first 6-hour buck, or 4 hours even. I've seen 4 hours go, go, go. 6 hours go, go, go. 8 hours go, go, go. 12 hours go, go, go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days in a row. Y'all, them home cooks don't be ready for that. They don't be interested in that. As a professional, you know it comes with the territory. It just happens. And so, y'all, I think those are the biggest differences that we can come up with. Professional chefs are also really, really good at cleaning as you go. Have you ever gone to your homie house or you watch your mama house when people are coming over for dinner around the holidays and she got to cook and the food get done and then you turn around and look at that kitchen and it looked like Armageddon that came through? Y'all, that can't happen in the professional kitchen. The health department will shut you down. People will get sick. People will be looking at you crazy. It just can't happen. So you learn to literally, it's called clean as you go. And we become masters at learning how, or you try to be masters. Gwen is better than I am, y'all, but I'm much better. You learn how to keep your area and your surroundings clean and also produce food. To me, a lot of the signs, one of the signs of a great chef is a chef or a cook who can produce a lot of food and have it ready to go. But when you walk into the environment, when you walk into the kitchen, when you walk into their prep space, it doesn't look like they're cooking food, or it doesn't look like there's a lot of preparation that has gone forth already. But yeah, y'all, those I think are my biggest differences that come to mind when I think of the difference between a home cook and a professional. My daddy was a great, great cook, y'all. He really, really was. But one thing he was not willing to do was adapt to the needs of cooking consistently or at high volume. And the inability to do that ultimately cost him his restaurant. Amongst other things, you know, I'm not just saying the restaurant went and so his store didn't last. But yeah, y'all, cooking for the public, cooking for the masses and for everybody. I've seen it chew up and spit out a lot of people because, you know, there are a lot of people who are hobby cooks and they thought because they were hobby cooks, they could just step into a commercial kitchen and do their thing, and it didn't work that way. The kitchen ate them up because it's very demanding. A lot of people don't know what it is to stand on your feet for 6, 7, 8, 10 hours a day or more. But that also leads me to this thought, y'all. Whatever it is you do, make sure when you're planning, make sure when you're doing, you consider those things. Consider whether this is something that you would do in the hardest of situations, or is it a hobby? Do you just like to do this for your own enjoyment? Because y'all, just because you do it and enjoy it, and just because it's a hobby does not mean it's a business, does not mean it can work professionally. So know that for yourself. For me, it's cooking. I learned very early on that I was willing to stomach all hurdles and work that came with being a chef because the gratification which I get from it is greater. Make sure whatever it is y'all doing, whatever your business is, you're willing to stomach the work and the sacrifice that comes with it, because the gratification from doing so is greater than said sacrifice. If you can't say that, if it's just a hobby, if you just like to do it, y'all, let it be that, and find those things to do professionally that you would do for free, that you would do under any circumstance. Y'all, I hope that helps somebody today. Please, please, please remember to like, subscribe, do all the things that you need to do to help us continue to bring you this content. Also, please check out Last Night's Coffee with Chuck and John, our homeboys, their podcast. It's on all podcast streaming platforms. Great guys, great content. Until next time, y'all, we are gone.